Hello everybody, Chaz here. In today's video I'm going to be reviewing the iPad 4, which was released in late 2012, over 8 years ago now, and it was released on iOS 6 and received software updates all the way up to iOS 10.3.3, which honestly feels like quite a modern version of iOS with the newer control center, the newer Apple Music app, and the redesigned lock screen, and it's hard for me to believe that this version is over 4 years old already, as it was released back in 2016, and the iPad 4 was the minimum iPad to run it, as Apple had ditched the A5 series, including the iPhone 4S and iPad 2, with this software update, leaving the iPad 4 as the oldest compatible iPad, and it was also the last iPad to have a 32-bit processor, as all future iPads had 64-bit processors. The iPad 4 had the Apple A6X processor, which was not capable of running iOS 11 since iOS 11 completely dropped 32-bit support, leaving the iPhone 5 and iPad 4 on iOS 10, which I think was actually kind of the right decision, since I think if Apple had decided to keep 32-bit support for iOS 11, the iPad 4 and iPhone 5 would have run very slowly on it, and it would have been bad for the iPad 4 to have ended up like the iPhone 4S on iOS 9 or iPhone 3G on iOS 4, which if you have used these devices on their respective software versions, you will certainly know about the lag that effectively makes these devices unbearable on the latest OS upgrades. First of all, on the iPad 4, I reviewed the design because in my opinion the iPad 4 has one of the best iPad designs after the black silver model, and it actually still feels very solid even in 2021. It is a very nice feeling, although if you are planning on carrying the iPad around a lot, I would certainly recommend a case, because the iPad 4 is one of the hardest iPads to repair because a lot of adhesive is used in it. The iPad 4 is a 9.7-inch display, similar to some of the newer iPads, which also have these displays like the 2017 and 2018. So while it can be quite hard to use, especially one-handed, it's basically impossible to use it one-handed, it can be good for watching stuff on and playing games that work on quite a large screen, although it does lack the Touch ID, so you do still have to use a passcode if you want to secure your device. Second of all, let's talk performance. This kind of surprised me. The iPad 4 still runs quite well in its latest firmware, and I noticed no major stutter when multitasking and switching in between apps. Basic games and basic apps still run well with very little lag in them. Browsing the web is also a good experience if you have a few tabs open, although if you want to open more tabs or play more intensive games or apps, then this is definitely not the tablet for you. But for basic games and apps and browsing, this iPad will work just fine, and most websites will work fine on this iPad and will likely continue to work like that for a few years. And the YouTube app also works fine, although you do have to download an older version from the purchase section in the App Store. There are many tutorials on how to do this, you can search it up. However, it is possible YouTube could end support soon for iOS 10 and require people to upgrade their OS or get a new device, but for now YouTube works fine, as does YouTube Studio and other media apps. Third of all, there's app compatibility, and let me tell you, a lot of apps have dropped support for iOS 10, and a lot of the apps on my iPad are older versions downloaded from the purchase section in the App Store, so if you don't mind using older versions, then you should be fine, but it is possible these app versions break in the future. Like on some older iOS versions recently, I've heard stuff about YouTube dropping support, and it now tells people to update the app or quit YouTube, and many apps do not have the functionality in older versions that they have introduced now. So 2 years ago this would have been very different when iOS 10 was only a couple of versions behind. Many apps still supported it, but now that has changed and many apps are moving on, so I wouldn't rate the iPad 4 that good in terms of app compatibility. Even if you can use older versions of the apps, you still can't enjoy the latest updates. For many apps, it is possible some apps could break in the future. Fourth of all, let's look at the camera. Now, although the camera is still working fine, it's much better than some other devices I've reviewed in the past. It is still a little blurry and won't give you the same good camera experience you'll get on newer iPads. While this camera was good at the time, this device is not one I would recommend to buy now if you want good quality photos. Now, to be fair on the iPad 4, it was released in 2012 and was very good for its time, but sadly isn't good anymore for 2021 standards and doesn't have any special features or anything like the newer devices have. Now, for basic photos and videos where the quality doesn't matter to you too much, it is perfectly fine, but if you want to do anything professional, then this iPad is definitely not the device for you. Fifth of all, there's battery life, and on this iPad I actually can say it still is good battery life. However, this honestly depends for you on how long it's been used for in the past. So if you're buying it used, your battery life will likely depend on how long the previous owner has used it, but for me, the battery is actually still quite good and lasts a good few hours. But at cost, this cost is that it takes a while to charge, and also it has refused to charge through the USB ports on my laptop because the ports don't provide enough power for the iPad to charge. So while the battery is really good for an iPad of its age, it does take a long time to charge, and this is expected as it is a big battery on the iPad and it should take a while to charge and it needs more power than you might expect it to need. So, is the iPad 4 worth it in 2021? That very much depends on what you need it for and how long you intend to use it before buying a newer device. Now, if you need it for browsing the web and perhaps using basic apps and games, then this iPad should still cover that for now, even if within a few years it may not be up for the task. But if you intend to use it for more intense apps and games, or multitask with more apps, or if you need apps that are incompatible with iOS 10, then the iPad 4 is certainly not the device for you, and you can get more recent iPads that can do those things for not all that much more money if you're on a budget. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to see more content like this. Anyways, have a good day. See you next time, and goodbye.